I'm in with the in crowd. I go with the in crowd.
Hey again, Matt here, and welcome to part 2 of my Robocop building video. This time we're going to do some sanding, which is one of the most tedious parts of any build really, because it's really boring. But what I might do is just show you a couple of things that I use when I'm sanding or shaping, starting from when I want to take off the most material to the finishing touches. So one of the tools that I really like using is this thing, which is a power file or a mini belt sander. It's got a belt of abrasive material that spins around here very fast, and it takes off a lot of material at once. It's an awesome tool, and I've been very fortunate enough to have been lent this to use for the Robocop project at the moment. I also have one of these, which is a mini drill. These are extremely useful. Mine came with this big selection of bits and sanding drums and all sorts of stuff, and I don't know how I worked without one. It's great for this fiberglass project. It's also great for foam as well, believe it or not. The sanding drums can be used to great effect to round off edges, which I showed in one of my Space Marine videos. I've also got a random orbital sander. This is a small one with a Velcro pad on it. I've got a slightly larger one, which has got a pad that you can replace with any kind of sandpaper without Velcro, just normal sandpaper. And then final thing is just sandpaper, lots of sandpaper, and a cork sanding block. Sanding blocks are very useful. They help you get a much smoother finish, and they actually help you work a bit faster as well. And normally when I'm sanding, I'll probably go down to about 200 grit. So start off with 80, but 80 grit leaves behind scratches and marks. So I'll usually finish off with some 200 grit, which is just good enough to prime and paint. Now, I don't really know if we're going to do a lot of videoing of me sanding, because it's not really all that interesting. But what I will tell you first of all is that if you are sanding car body filler, then you need to wear a respirator. And it's particularly important with body filler or bog, because the fumes from it are incredibly toxic. And that's both when you're mixing it and applying it, and when you're sanding it off as well. It's really bad for you. So not just a dust mask, but an actual respirator with filters on the side is what you need. And again, any power tools, use safety glasses. Bits of things in your eyes are never much fun, so always use these. Now with the Robocop project, I've got, as you saw from my last video, some bits that I filled in with fiberglass. I've also got some bits that I filled in with body filler. And what I probably do first is use the random orbital sander to take off the chunks of stuff that I don't need. Then I'll probably use the sanding block, and then I'll use my mini drill to try and add back some of the details that I've filled in when I've used the body filler. And really the sanding process is just a question of doing that over and over again. So you fill it with body filler, sand it back, put the details back in, realise that there's some more stuff missing, so you put some body filler in, then you sand it back, then you put your details back in, then you find some more bits that are missing. So there is some areas that I've got quite a lot of stuff that I'm going to need to scoop out and reshape. But hopefully, because these pieces weren't too bad to start with, hopefully it won't take that long. So let's get on with it. Now I'm also fortunate enough to have a shot vac, which is very useful for keeping dust down. But what I don't have is all of the different adapters that you use to plug them into the various tools. So I've just got the vacuum pipe gaffer taped into my sander here. So let's get cracking.
I'm in with the in crowd.
trick with adding the details back is to use the right bit. If you use one that's too wide, then if you're trying to copy some detail from somewhere, it won't fit and you'll end up having to redo the whole thing in the same width. And if you use something that's too narrow, it tends to penetrate a little bit too far. Having said that, it might be better to start off with something that you feel is a little bit undersized, because as with any kind of DIY, you can always make holes larger, but it's much harder to make holes smaller again. So what I do is I'll get the bit that I think looks right and I'll just test it in the part that I'm about to go over again. So I'm actually going to go over this piece here where you can see I've filled in some of the edges. And what I'll do is I'll just rest the drill bit into the gap and I can see that it basically fits perfectly. So I'm pretty sure that this drill bit's going to be okay.
Talking trash, girl, I'll show you a real good time. Come on with me and leave your troubles behind. I don't care just where you've been.
Something else you'll notice me doing is I nearly always use two hands on the tool. What that allows me to do is to just keep the tip of it guided, particularly where you're doing a straight line, but you've got the weight and you're holding the majority of the tool's weight in one hand. And then the other hand is just used to kind of guide the tip in the right direction. I also seem to find it easier to do straight lines when I'm moving backwards with the drill bit rather than forwards. And I think that's probably because when you go forwards, it tends to, like a chisel, it tends to dig the tip in and it makes a series of kind of small holes as you go along, whereas when you pull it back, it tends to make a much smoother line.
And I know what the intro goes. Anytime of the year, don't you hear?
What I'm going to do is stop here and try and show you the difference between an area that I've re-engraved using the mini drill and an area that I've not, just so you can try and see what I'm achieving with this. So if we have a look at this line on here, what you can see is parts of it are sort of filled in there at the end of my fingertip in particular. There's a part that's filled in, and that's the defect with the mould that was used to cast these. Now on this area here, this is where I've been over it with the mini drill, and what you can see is that it is straight with no parts that are filled in. And obviously from a distance, these parts are going to look okay. But when you get a bit closer, what you'll immediately be able to see is that they're, well, rough and filled in. And it's one of those things that the human eye tends to be able to pick out quite easily. We're very good at detecting when a straight line is not straight. It's just sort of part of human nature, really. So whenever you've got something like that, it's actually quite important that you make sure that it is both straight and even, just for the sake of appearances, really. Okay, well that's it for this video. It wasn't a particularly interesting one, but that's just life really when you're building costumes and props. There's parts of it that aren't interesting, but I hope some parts of it were useful. In the next video, what I'm going to do is go over adding back the detail to these thigh pieces that I've got. There's lots of bits that are missing, so I'm going to show you how I'm going to go about re-adding those again. So see you next time.